Okay, so the Ramchal, in his introduction to Derech HaShem, which we started last week, told us that if you want to acquire any discipline, right, you have to learn it in a very structured way, right? You have to build an edifice. You have to he believes in systematic, organized acquisition of something, right? And he told us the way to do that is basically whenever you learn a concept, an idea from that discipline, you set it up. You run it through through an analysis. What's the analysis? So you check it out through this eightfold thing. There are these 8 categories. You categorize into one of the 8, and that is either it's a part or a whole, right? Either it is a detail or a general principle. All right, so last time we had kind of a little difficulty explaining what's the difference between the part and the whole and a general principle and the detail. And I think it's simple. Let's say you have 3 letters in a set. It's called USA. Okay, USA. So the letter U is a part of a 3-part whole, which is USA, right? So there's a hole here. That's the coil, and the U is S, and the A. Each one is a chelik of this whole called USA. But then you know that USA stands for United States of America. So USA is a klal, as a general principle, that once you unpack the general principle, you get United States of America. Now, United States of America are not, right now, they're not inside the USA. You have to unpack it to really see that the words United States of America are encoded into the letters USA. But right now, you see the US and A, that's the totality. Each one represents a part. And then if you unpack that, that's where you get the details of the general principle. Okay, so those are the first 4, and then you need to know if it's a cause and an effect, and then you need to know if it's the thing itself or it's a corollary. It's some kind of a byproduct of the thing, right? Then he told us that the even though it's a corollary of the thing, the corollary, right? It's a secondary thing, can have 7 different. You can categorize it in 7 different ways. Is it an accompanying thing? Is it an precedent, an antecedent, or a coincident? Is it systemic, or in other words, intrinsic, or is just it's just an occasional thing, right? And if it is something that's in potential, or it's actually something that isn't actualized. Right, those are the meaning. These secondary qualities, they can take on different forms, and then finally he says for everything that you're learning, you got to know if the thing is absolute, or if it has exceptions, meaning if it's limited, right? And if it is limited, you got to figure out what are the limitations, because if you take any concept beyond its limit, it will not be correct, right? This is good. So that's basically the general map that he told us. If you want to address any subject, any discipline, you gotta put the entire edifice onto this structure, so that you have this clear garden, what he calls it, right, in its paths, and then you will have satisfaction because you will know how to see it. Again, can I argue on this point? I could argue on this point. Why would I argue on this point? Because by definition, I could say that knowledge is more analog, right? You can't really place everything neatly into its specific place. Some things belong into different places, or so okay, but we'll leave that. But maybe again, the acquisition of knowledge has to come through these divisions, right, and categorizations. Maybe once you have a clear picture of the categorization, then you could figure out, okay, this gray area is right in between these two issues, etc. Okay, anyways, now he says, but he's going to focus mostly now on actually this klal uprat. If something is a general principle, or it's a particular expression of the general principle. Okay, so he says like this. However, You have to understand that the number of particulars of every general rule is very great. Right? From that a seichel adam is not capable of hachil of encompassing all of them. Okay, so right, so there's too many. Every general principle has so many different applications. You cannot possibly calculate in advance all of the possible applications of every general principle. So it's impossible for you to know all of them. Ulam, however, so what a person should put his effort into, is to know the general principles. Right? To really know, to really internalize the general principles, that's the way to go. Why? Because every general principle, by its very nature, it contains in it many particulars. So when you acquire one general principle, by definition, you come to grasp through it mispar rav min haprotim, a great number of the details, of the particulars. Okay? And even though you don't understand the particulars yet, right? So you've learned the general principle, right? So let's talk about the United States Constitution, right? That's a general principle, right? So it says, you have to have freedom of speech. That's a general principle, right? Every particular case of that freedom of speech, you can't figure it out. What if it's hate speech? What if it's this kind of speech? You can't figure out every particular expression of this idea that you have to have freedom of speech, right? Does that mean that I can insult you? Does that mean that I can, right? So there's so many particulars. So you don't yet. So when you learned a general principle, right? You don't know exactly in the future how it's going to play out, right? And you did not recognize yet this particular application. That this is at all. You don't even know necessarily that this expression is part of this general principle. Okay? But however, but when the need arises, when one comes to your hand, then you won't leave it without recognizing it. Because he now he already knows the inyan haklali, the general idea. Okay, which a particular expression cannot exist without a general principle, right? And so did our sages say, in general, that the words of Torah should be in your hands, general as general principles and not particulars and details. Meaning, in other words, it's really saying is that whenever you see an idea, right, you got to try to come up with a rule. Meaning, right, every rule is an abstraction, right? You gotta, if you want to know something, you don't look at the particular expression of it. You try to build, a logical rule that stands behind it, and vice versa. If you want to learn the general rules, and as a result of general rules, you will figure out all of them. Right? I mean, just an example. In Wikipedia, look at Rabbi Akiva Eger. Right? You're familiar with Rabbi Akiva Eger? Rabbi Akiva Eger is this brilliant mind of, one of the most brilliant minds that we've had. Who knows in how many years, right? So they called him in Wikipedia. They called him a casuist. Casuist. You know what a casuist is? A casuist is basically somebody who approaches law through cases, right? So because he's a computer of a brain, so he doesn't. Meaning, so the idea of it, this was an insult in a way. It was both a compliment and an insult. On one hand, it's a compliment because he's a computer of a brain who analyzes, a million different cases, And then you could say that your case is similar to this case, and so just like in this case, the halacha went like this. Right. So in your case, the halacha should go like this. Do I know what the reason is? Why case A and case, the psak in case A was this, and similar the psak in case B? No, I don't need to know the reason. I just know that the cases are similar, so must be the outcome is similar. So, and then the insult to a kazu is to somebody who doesn't look at the principle, at the general principle. He looks at each individual case and just sees if your cases are similar enough, right? So the Ramchal is saying basically, don't be a casuist, be whatever the opposite of it, a principalist. I don't know. Formulate general rules of logic. Okay, now let's keep going. So basically, why is he telling us? Why is he telling us this? Why is he telling us this? Because he's telling you the book that I would like to present to you before is going to be this book of general principles of Judaism, right? And that's what you're going to learn. But now let's see. However, mashi itzarich b'idiyas haklolim. Now this, be aware that what you need to know when it comes to general principles, hu hadas aisom b'chol gvuleihem uv'chinoisehem, that you need to know them in all of their limitations and all of their aspects, right? Meaning, okay, let's keep going. And even though in the beginning you see a statement, okay, you see a general rule. Again, I don't have the language of the Constitution in front of me, but you see a general rule, and you see their words. Okay, let's talk about the Mishnah says arba avos nizikin. There are four, types of damages, right? Four avos, four main categories, primary categories of damages, and there's Ashor, v'habor, v'amav, v'haver, and it lists the four primary damagers. So that's a general principle. So if you want to understand this general principle, you got to ask every little detail. Why did it say four? Why are these four? Why are they in this order? Why are they called what they called? Why is it called? The shore is an ox. Ox has many other aspects of it. Which one is it referring to? So you got to dig deeper into the general principles so that you really internalize every little detail that is available to you within the general principle, right? Why is that important? So even though in the beginning you might find, there's an extra letter vav over here. That seems weird. That doesn't seem to tell me anything. I would have gotten rid of it, right? But he's telling you no. Even though betchila it seems ne'edrei hatayloda, has no necessary outcome. No, tzarich shetishmar oisom. For now, you have to guard them. V'toshes lehem libech, and place your heart on them. V'lo tiyeh boz lehem, and do not kind of disregard them. Okay, because you might not realize that this is an important element of it. Right now, it doesn't seem to be important because you didn't find the application where this is necessary. Because the whole point is, right, that if you understand the general principles very well, when it comes to an individual application, you'll be able to know, oh wait, I know this. This connects to this general principle that I already know. But in order for you to make that connection, you need to make sure that every little detail of the general principle is kind of ingrained in your psyche. Okay? There is no small thing or big thing in the general principle that doesn't have an expression in the particulars. So again, this is an amazing idea. Right? We always ask when we're learning Gemara, we ask, okay, what's the nafkamina, right? What's the difference? What's the practical difference, right? And you have to understand that what he's saying is that if there is a noticeable difference within the general rule, there is always going to be a place where that is going to have an applied difference as well. Okay, and it's quite an amazing, an extraordinary idea. Umashlo Yosef, Umashu lo Yosef v'lo yigra b'ktasa protim. Okay, and even if it does not seem to add or detract anything from the protim, from the details, it will you will find an expression kind of in outside of it. It has to have everything that applies to all of them, because meaning if it's a general principle, it's got to apply to all of them. And so even if it's missing something, there's a reason for that as well. Therefore, therefore you have to be very scrupulous in this, which is boinin al inyonim, and you have to contemplate on all of them, val yachasehem, and all of their interconnections, vikishrehem, and all their, well, it's another word for connections, really relationships and connections, bediktuch godel, in great detail, v'tivchen yofe yofe, and examine them very carefully, hamsheichem v'yishtal shalusam, their extension and their I'm not sure exactly what this is, but he just translated over here as a manner in which one concept is inferred from the other. Okay, so their linkage, let's just call it their linkages. When one concept emanates from another, min harosh ve'atzoy, from the beginning till the very end, ve'os tatzliach, then you will be successful, ve'os tatzkil, and then you will be illuminated. Okay, so again, so he's telling you an important point. He's telling you that when you're analyzing these general principles, you have to pay attention. You have to drill until you get that as much as possible. Good. Now that you know this, now he's telling you, V'hine al pi hadvorim ha'ele chibarti lecho koirei naim chibur koton zeh. Now, based on these ideas, he says, I, dear reader, compiled this small compilation. Okay? Meaning what? V'kivanti boi lehatziya lefanecha klolei ha'amuna. My intention over here was to present before you the general principles of faith, v'ha'avoida, the general principle of service, al-burium, in total clarity. Be'oifen, in such a way, shetuchel, that you will be able to, la'amoid, to kind of stand on your own, aleihem al-nochin, properly. V'yitztairu b'sichlecho tziyur maspik, and they will kind of present an image in your seichel, a complete image, or a sufficient image. Mutzol min ha'irbuv v'amavucha, and it will be saved from mixture, right, and confusion. V'tiresh roshehem, you will see the roots, v'anfehem, and their branches, b'madrigosim, in their proper levels, b'beirur ha'efshari, in as much clarity as possible. Sheyisyashvu al libacho, so then they will find proper place in your heart, v'tikna isom b'sichlechol, and you will acquire them with your wisdom, b'muvchar shebaponim, in the best way possible. And from then on, it will be easier for you to find the knowledge of God, in all parts of Torah and its explanations, and even to understand its secrets, like Hashem will bless you if you right. So now what he's saying is that basically this book that he is writing, what he calls a chibur koton, is a book of these general principles. And so every letter, every word, every expression, he's saying, don't think that there's anything to be taken lightly over here. You have to kind of, and if you want to get the full benefit of this book, you gotta dig deeper into it. Everything here is precise. Okay. And here I attempted to organize everything in the most kind of in an order that I found most appropriate. Ubemilois, and using the words shechashavtim hayoser hagunois, that are words that I found to be most proper. Laseis lechotzir shalom, so I can give you a complete picture me'advorim ha'ela, from these things. Asher gamarti lahaskilcha, that I chose to enlighten you with. Al ken gam ato. Okay, so therefore you also ato now tzorich at ledaktek al koza. You need to put in a lot of effort into getting into every detail. Okay, v'lishmor is called zeshmira meula, and guard also every statement, very strongly. Atimtza mokum shiyoylecha, until you actually find the application. Again, just like he said, that every general principle will have its application. So this is the kind of book that you can't just. It's not going to be light reading, even though again the Hakdama is surprisingly dry and difficult for us, but the rest of it will be much easier, at least after the first chapter. But what he's saying is, even though the reading will get easier, you as a reader have to analyze it more carefully. Okay, so ve'al tivater al shum diktukan. So do not skip over any kind of question or any detail. Because you may miss as such an important essential element. This is what you should do. Tidaktek al kol hamilos. Okay, examine carefully every word. And attempt to put together a general structure of this. And to gather the entirety of truth in your mind. And then you will find the rest, kind of the satisfaction that you are looking for. Okay? All right, so the next paragraph we already did because we did it last time, which is saying that I called this book Derech HaShem, and he tells you what the structure is. That the first part he's going to talk about, so it has 4 parts. The first part he's going to talk about the Creator. Okay? The second part is, the Creator and the creation. The second part, the way the Creator runs the creation. The third part is going to be the ability of the creation to receive the messages from the Creator. And the fourth part is actually going to discuss what the service the creation has to perform to the Creator. Okay, so those are the 4 parts. Okay, so let's just start now, part number 1. Okay, all right, so that was the introduction. Let's start parak. So the first parak is called B'boirei Yisborach Shmoy. Right, it's going to discuss the Creator. Okay, because, right, so if we want to understand, so again, let's go start from the beginning. Okay, introduction is over. We're starting from the beginning. We want to understand the world that we find ourselves in. We want to understand, what is this Torah, what is this Judaism, what's going on here, right? Now, one thing that we need to say that this is a book of general principles, meaning that not everything necessarily is going to be really spelled out. Not everything is going to be brought, meaning sometimes he'll just say the conclusions or the ideas, and something, he works out the idea itself, he works out in different sefer. Let's say he has a book called Das Tvunos, very difficult book. And over there he talks about a lot of the concepts that he just mentions here in one line or one paragraph. Over there he'll have chapters of it where he actually works out the logic and the whole structure. Over here he'll just say this is what the idea is, and we're just going to accept it. We're not necessarily going to go, especially in the beginning where in our modern society we're not so trained to think about what exactly is the nature of God, how much do we know about God, what are we allowed to know, what are not we allowed, because at the end of the day, a lot of the time that analysis is very inapplicable for our life. Anyway, so let's see carefully. Let's see carefully. So, what do we know about the Creator? So, Aleph. The first thing he says, Kol ish mi Yisrael, every Jewish man. Again, I'm just going to translate literally, and then we see if that's literal or not. Kol ish mi Yisrael, every Jewish man, tzorich sheyamin, needs to believe, veyeda, and to know, sheyesh shom, that there is out there, motzui rishon, the first being. Motzui Rishon, the first being, Kadmoin, that he is the earliest one, V'nitzchi, and he is eternal, and he has no beginning and no end, V'hu Shehimtzi, and he brought into existence, Umamtzi, and continues to bring into existence, Kol Ma Shenimtza, everything that exists, B'mitzius, in the existence. And who is this being? V'hu ha'elaka baruch hu, and this is God, blessed be He. Okay, so that's the first kind of statement. And again, if you think about what we're used to, again, we're here, religious Jews, Orthodox religious Jews. We believe that there is a God, there's a Creator, right? So this is not news to any of us. However, let's just remind ourselves that really that statement in itself already completely redefines the way you see the world, the way you look at the world, the way you live your life. That statement in itself completely changes a lot of things. Not only, oh wait, there's a God, but it's also a certain kind of God. That talks about everything really stems from these words. Okay, but now let's understand what he's talking about. So first of all, let's ask questions. Well, let's start from the beginning. So what does he say? You have to believe that there is a God? What does he say? You have to believe that there is a God? Or does he say he says you have to believe that there is a God and you have to know that there is a God? What's the difference between knowledge and belief? Anybody knows what the difference between knowledge and belief?
No, it's a famous explanation. The child knows that fire is hot, so he doesn't touch it, but one day he don't touch it, now he knows. So people don't touch it, so he believes his parents, but once he touched it and burned himself.
So in your so good. So your definition. Let's think again. Let's think about it. I'm going to poke your definition a little bit, but your definition is that belief is what you know conceptually, and knowledge is what you know empirically.
Yeah.
When you experience something, you know it. When you learn about something, you believe it. Right?
You take the belief, you apply the reality.
Okay. All right. So good. I mean, we're not going to go into a whole philosophy over here, but we find often that our experience is very misleading. Right? We don't necessarily experience things. Two people can experience the same thing and have completely different impressions and get completely different stories. Right?
Yeah.
So our experience is not a very reliable thing. Anyway, so let's just, so again, I'm not going to go into, I don't know what the difference between belief and knowledge is. Let's say I do not know for sure. Okay? There was a time when knowledge was the definition of knowledge was true justified belief. TJB. True justified belief. That's the definition. And then there's a whole case of, oh my goodness, let's say I look at a clock, okay? The clock says 3 p.m., okay? And it happens to be that it's 3 p.m. right now, except what I don't know is that the clock is broken. It just happens to be that when I looked at the clock, I happen to have looked at it at the right time. So do I have knowledge that it's 3 o'clock? Or don't I have, what is that? Is that knowledge? Is that belief?
You take it as knowledge.
What?
You take it as knowledge because it's a reasonable assumption.
Right, so it's true. Is it justified?
In your head, yes.
Right. So again, there's so much on those words, but the point is, not everybody. Right. Let's just for a second. So for a second, if we look at the Rambam. So let's look at the Rambam at the beginning of Yad HaChazaka. Yad HaChazaka, what does he say? Introductions. Are we there yet? There we go. Okay, Yesoid HaYesoidos, the foundation of foundations, Ve'amud HaChochmos, and the pillar of wisdoms, Leida, to know, Sheyesh Motzei Rishon, that there is this first being. Okay, so this is almost word for word from the Rambam, except over here, the Rambam only has the word to know, and he does not have the word to believe. Right? If you look, let's look at Sefer HaMitzvahs. If you look at Sefer HaMitzvahs, the first commandment, what's the first commandment? The first commandment is HaMitzvah HaRishoina. The first commandment, Hi Hatzivu, is the commandment, Asher Tzivonu, that we were commanded, Lehamin, to believe Ha'elakus, that there is a God. V'hu shenamin, this that we should believe, Sheyesham Olo, that there is this creator, Vesiba, that caused who, okay, and etc. Okay? And it says, Anoichi Hashem Elakech. Right? So, it's very interesting. So the Rambam in the beginning of the Yad HaChazaka, he says the foundation is to know there is a God. In the Sefer HaMitzvahs, he says that the mitzvah is to believe that there is a God. Okay. So what does that mean? And comes the Ramchal, and he puts the two Rambams kind of into one language, right? So okay. So where does it? So right. So I see you're looking at Elena.
Yep.
Right. So So the pasuk, right? It all stems from this pasuk. The pasuk says v'yadata hayoy, and you should know today v'ashivoiso el levavecha, and you should return it, kind of reinforce it in your heart, right? HaShem hu Elokim, Hashem is God. B'shmayim ma'al v'oras mitachas einod. Right. That's the pasuk. So the Torah tells us that there is that besides blind faith, I have a mitzvah, and this is what he's saying, right? I have a requirement to know v'yadata hayom, and you should know today, and v'ashivoiso levech, and you gotta reinforce it in your heart. In other words, you gotta contemplate, you gotta think about it, you gotta reanalyze it, these things, right? So it's not just enough to I believe there is a God. All right, that's not enough. You have to reinforce it. Okay, so then the next thing is, it says Kol Ish Yisrael, that every man. Okay, so I'm not going to assume for now that he doesn't mean a man. I don't see why a woman is not obligated to believe in God. That's ridiculous. So, but Isha is just means person. It doesn't mean. I'm assuming it does not mean male person. It means just every human being. But the next part is unnecessary. He could have said Kol Ish. Every person needs to know that there is a God. He specifically says Kol Ish Yisrael. Every Jewish person needs to know that there is a God. So why is he speaking for, why is he saying that every Jewish person needs to know that there's a God? What, non-Jews do not have do not have a need to know that there is a God? So my presumption is that, like we said, that a Jew has a responsibility to know that there is a God. For a non-Jew, perhaps a blind faith, or maybe even Pascal's wager, is sufficient, right? It's a 50-50 chance there's a God exists. 50, I don't want to take my chances, so I'll lead a virtuous life on the 50% chance that God exists. Maybe that's sufficient. That may be sufficient for a non-Jew. For a Jew, he has this. It says, the Torah says, "V'yadata hayom." You need to know this day, v'ashivoiso levecha, and you got to reinforce it into your heart that there is a God. So a Jew is obligated to dwell on these things and to think about these things. Okay, and what does he need to think about? That this God is kadmon v'nitzchi, right? He's eternal and he has no beginning and no end. And the other thing that is interesting, that he brought into existence, and he points out, and he continues to bring into existence. Again, that's different from what the Rambam says, I believe. The Rambam says, just says, Sheesha Motzi Rishon, that there's a first being, V'hu mamtzi kol hanimtza, and he brings forth. I'm sorry, it's right, and that's very interesting. And he brings forth everything that exists. And again, over here, he says the same thing, that he's a cause of everything that exists. Okay, so the idea is, and this is what we learned in Nefesh HaChaim, that unlike that we believe that God is a continuous cause of everything that exists, meaning that unlike a person who builds a house, right? I build a house. What does that mean? I build a house. I take wood from someplace, right? I take bricks from someplace, like cement from someplace, and then when I build a house, I just put these things together, and then I can go away, and the house will stay. A person will die, and the house will still be there because I took something that was independent of me, and I formed it as something as independent of me, and that's it. And the house does not rely on me for its continued existence, while the creation is not like that. The creation has to be continuously, every second. It's more like a projector in a movie. As the projector is playing, the movie is playing. You turn off the projector, the movie disappears. So the universe is a continuous projection by God, and every second it gets reprojected, right? Otherwise it would cease to exist. So that's v'hushin shehimtzi umamtzi kol mashenimtzi. Okay, so let's leave that. So that's God. So what is God? What do we know about God? That he is an infinite creator who continues to create. That's basically that, right? That's God. An infinite creator who continues to create. Okay. Let's see. There is another thing that you need to know. That this first being ein amitas mitziusoi musegas zulosoi klal. That no external entity can understand his essence. But there is this thing that we do know, shehu motzui sholem, that he's a perfect being, b'chol minei shleimus, and all sorts of perfection, v'loi nimtze boi chisaron klal, and he has no lacking. Right, so we only know that he's a perfect being. We don't really know what the word perfection means, but he's not lacking anything. But to truly understand God is we need to know that we cannot know. Right? We need to know that we cannot know. V'ulam, however, so now meaning, so that's again, it's a contradiction of sorts. In the beginning, he says, I have a responsibility to know. Right, Vashivois, right, V'yadata hayom, as we said. I mean, he doesn't say, but the pasuk says V'yadata hayom Vashivois olabach. He's going to bring the pasuk later, that I need to know today, and I have to return it into my heart. So there's something that I have to work on, and I have to drill it in and contemplate it. But at the same time, I need to know that all of my contemplation are going to hit a place where I won't go there. So now I ask you 1 second. So what do I need to do it for? Why do I need to study something that I will know that I will never get to the bottom of it? Right? What's the point? And that's really a lot of people question that in practice. Like, why do I need to understand it if I'm never going to understand it anyways? So why start? Why start? Okay, I believe there's a God. Finished. That is right. But that's right. But that's not. So so that's what he's telling us. He's telling us, don't go that path. That's not our path. Right? Meaning, each person is revealed more and more on his level. Okay. V'ulam, however, dvorim eli yadanum b'kabola min ha'avos. You have to understand that these things, how do we know what I'm saying? How do we know what I'm telling you? So first, we have a tradition from our fathers, umin hanevim, and from our prophets. V'hisigum kol Yisrael Ma'amad Har Sinai, and we also experienced this during the Ma'amad Har Sinai. V'omdu al mitasam b'beidur, and at that point we established these things with clarity. V'limdum livneihem dorach hardar, and then this was taught to us generation after generation, kayoim hazeh, until today. Shekein tziva Moshe Rabbeinu l'vasholem pi hagvura, that Moshe Rabbeinu was such task commanded from HaShem, pen tishkach chesed dvarim asher ru einecha, and you should not forget these things that we saw today, meaning at Har Sinai, And you should make them known to your sons and your sons' sons. Right? So in other words, that even though there are certain things that we do not understand, but how do we know them if we don't understand them, right? If we didn't get to these things through our personal logic, because we have a tradition, we have a Masorah. Okay? However, he says, Amnam, however, Gam mitzad hachakira, but even though it is primarily, this comes to us from Masorah, but mitzad hachakira, even from chakira, from analysis, okay, let's say analysis, but moifsim halimudim, from demonstrable proofs. Moifsim is really like a sign, and limudim means logical signs. Let's call them logical signs. We can also establish the truth of all these things, right? So even though primarily, where did they come to us? They come to us from tradition, but once we have them from tradition, we could use logic and arrive at the same conclusions. V'yuchach heyois kain, and we can prove that it is so. Mikoyach hanimtzois, from what what exists. Umasigehem asher anachnu roim beinenu, from what we see from it with our eyes. Al pi chochmas hateva, using natural wisdom. Handasa, and mathematics, physics. Yeah, physics. Hatchuna. Which one is which? I don't know already. I think Handosa means physics. Hatchuna, this is astronomy. Ushar Chochmes, and other wisdoms. Shehem tilakachno hakdomois amitios, from which we can derive basic premises. Asher yivoled mehem beirur hainyonim amitim ha'ela, from which we will derive the truthfulness and the clarity of all of these things. Okay? However, right now we're not going to speak too much about this. We're just going to present these introductions and organize them in their proper order. And we're going to rely on the Mesoros, the tradition that's in our hands, and all these things that are already well known amongst our nation. Okay, so again, let's just recap. So in the beginning, he told us that the first thing we need to know, right, in order to understand Judaism, is the nature of God, that He's an infinite creator who continues to bring everything into existence. We also know that we will not have the complete knowledge of God. We know that everything that we know comes from tradition, but we also can use logic to arrive at the same conclusions. Second. Okay, we'll stop here.